Hey everyone, in this video I want to discuss a topic that is probably going to be controversial, but not as controversial as my artillery video. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see. The topic for today is, I don't think we need +1 or -1 matchmaking as a permanent feature. In my opinion, I think it would have a long-term negative effect on the game and the player base. So, why do I think this? Well, what I try to do before passing any kind of judgment on anything is to understand both sides of the discussion. On one hand, we have the argument that the game is simply too unfairly matched when you're stock and you find yourself bottom tier. Probably primarily tier 8 here. That's probably what most people are talking about. Although it does apply to other tiers obviously, but I'd say most of the time it's always tier 8. On the other hand, we have the argument that no matter where you find yourself, you can always contribute to the game. As a player of the game, I do my best to treat it as such, but lately I've been facing challenges in my professional life that I have found carry over into the game. In my opinion, the argument I hear that supports +1 -1 can be summed up like this. If I am always bottom tier, 2 tiers down, the game is broken, unbalanced or unfair, and wargaming should do something about it. Like I mentioned previously, this is a game, and I do my best to view it as only a game, but something I've picked up on is this. Viewing something as broken, unbalanced or unfair is a matter of perspective. For those of you that don't know, I also play a little bit of World of Warships, and that game has given me a much better appreciation for the matchmaker and game balance in World of Tanks. I'll give you an example, okay? And this is an example that Warships players will probably understand most or better than anyone. I was just floating about in my little tier 4. The game had started probably no more than 20 seconds into the game. So I'm really close to my spawn. 16 kilometers away, half the flipping Kriegsmarine outspot me because they're in tier 7s, and I'm gone with one salvo from a battleship. I can't. It was a. It might have been a Bismarck. There's another tier 7 German battleship. The name escapes me now, but yeah, I was gone in one salvo. 30 seconds into the game. Gone. After that experience, I've decided to never complain about artillery in World of Tanks ever again. Being tier 4 in a tier 7 game is something that wargaming did away with in tanks a long time ago. And I think we can all agree that for the most part that's a good thing. I mean, I do miss fighting T-29s in my Matilda, because I almost killed one once, and that's a great memory for me, but aside from that, it wasn't fun. With the perspective of playing boats now, I'm fairly confident in saying that tankers have it a lot better than the boaters do. At this point though, you might say that just because it's worse somewhere else doesn't mean that what we have is okay in tanks. Always bottom tier still makes the game broken, unbalanced and unfair. Alright, let's break that down. First off is the use of the word always. If you're in any kind of personal relationship, you can probably associate with the 1,000-yard stare you receive when saying you always to your partner. Are you always bottom tier, or does the displeasure of being bottom tier just stick out more in your mind? Because it does for me, and I don't think I'm a unique player. I'm probably average. So what's average for me, what's probably normal for me, is probably normal for most people. I think we have a tendency to look at the scoreboard before a game starts and think, oh, here we go, another bottom tier game. You know, just sort of you throw your hands up in the air maybe and say, oh great, here we go again. But this might be followed by an average victory, which isn't bad, but all we remember is the negative at the start of the game despite the positive win. And it's really, really easy to remember the negative or view the scoreboard from a negative point of view. The next point is the game is broken, unbalanced, and unfair. In my opinion, this is a negative attitude that is very easy to pick up. It is contagious, and I can tell you from personal experience that it spreads if left unchecked. As I've mentioned in my True Vision, it was either my True Vision video or the live stream I did, I used to play Battlefield a lot back in the day. The group I associated with then had a tendency to complain about hackers in the game and blame the developer for certain things happening in the game. Over time, I picked up on this mindset, and I started to accuse players who outplayed me as being hackers. If something happened in the game that didn't go my way, I would blame the developer. And in the Battlefield 4 sort of community back in the day, when I say back in the day, sort of 4 or 5 years ago, there was this kind of, I'd say, internet meme that was something would happen to you and you'd just go, oh, DICE please, because DICE was the developer. A bit like Wargaming is for tanks, DICE is the developer for Battlefield 4, and people would just be like, oh, DICE please, you know, this is ridiculous or whatever. And I picked up on this. What I've noticed between then and now is that it's starting to sound familiar. At first, it felt great to blame others for these issues, but what I noticed over time was this. It was actually ruining my enjoyment of the game. I started to dislike the very thing I used to love to do because I allowed my attitude towards the game to be poisoned by negativity. So the question I've had to ask myself back then and now, with whatever I'm facing, whatever I'm doing, gaming related or not, is it really broken, unfair and unbalanced, or do I simply not like what happens sometimes? Oftentimes I hear the word broken when referring to the matchmaker. In my opinion, saying the matchmaker is broken is an attempt to pass all responsibility for the outcome of that game from the player to wargaming. For example, if I do badly, it's not my fault because wargaming have done X, Y, and Z. I will agree that being the only tier 8 in a tier 10 game isn't ideal, but no matter how bad we think it is, the true test is how we choose to respond. For example, the other day I was in a game, I was in my convoy, halfway up the 8 line, I was watching the 8 line in my TD, on Abbey. Fairly standard place to go for TDs. A friendly Hollandhund fell back and parked up next to me. They pinged awesome, followed by good game, before proceeding to drive into the river to drown themselves. This individual had decided the game was not worth their time. If they'd stuck around for just a few more minutes, possibly even 30 seconds, they would have realised that none of the enemy team had come down the 8 line as you would usually expect. This meant they had a free run to the enemy spawn area and they could have taken out, or they would have had the opportunity to take out both artillery and a T-25 TD. Yes, that game was a defeat, and yes, the team could have done better from the very beginning. But what's better? Coming top of the team in a defeat because you worked for it, or coming bottom of the team in a defeat because you just gave up? In my opinion, coming top of the team in a bottom tier tank, even if it's a defeat, 2 tiers down, is more rewarding than coming top in a top tier tank. I think anyone can come top when they're already top tier. Fighting your way up isn't always easy or pleasant, but that's where the reward is. Speaking of reward, I want to touch on that for a second. We all want to see the victory banner come up at the end of a game, but expecting to win all the time is probably a little bit foolish. I mean, there are super unicums out there that can't even achieve that. And this is something else I've had to learn. Change my expectations, because sometimes, or what I have done in the past is, my expectations of myself in whatever scenario have been almost impossible to achieve. So when I don't achieve whatever it was I was expecting, I felt crap about myself, thinking I was, I'd failed somehow. But if I change my expectation, then I can change it to something that's achievable and more manageable. If I expect to log in and come top in every game or win every game, I'm going to be miserable. If I expect every team to play like pros, I'm going to be miserable. If I expect to do the best I can in every game and that be enough, then I will enjoy myself. Yes, other players do play a part in the success of the team, and yes, I've been that player spectating someone and it's been irritating, but passing blame to the rest of the team every time only proves that we didn't play that particular game right. We didn't adapt to it. After all, there are super unicum players out there that deal with the same team listings, team balance, and matchmaker as we do. Sometimes it's best to just call it for what it is. I didn't play that game right and I got taken out. Mistakes were made. Let's move on. Now, yes, obviously there are games with AFK players and complete noobs, but for the most part that is not the case. So again, in my opinion, the game isn't broken, unbalanced, or unfair. I've seen games with mostly TDs on one team and heavies on the other, and at first glance that could be seen as unfair or unbalanced. One team is very, very campy, TDs, and the other is armoured and mobile, the heavies. I've been the player in the game like that, in a game like that, that said, the TDs are done for. They're just going to drive one square forwards and sit there for the rest of the game. We're done for. And during the game in question, I was on the side of the TDs. I've been in those games. I thought at the beginning of the game, I thought, this is it. We're done. This game is over before it's even begun. And I went out. I was in my light tank, I think. I went out, did my thing, got taken out by something or whatever, and went back to garage because I thought, that's done for. But this game is full of surprises and is unpredictable. I was shocked when I saw the game result come back in as a win. And so I've been surprised too many times to think that the game is broken, unbalanced, or unfair, because anything can happen. Absolutely anything can happen. And I think what we need to do is change our approach to the game. +1, -1 will make for a slightly more chilled weekend of tanking. 2 tiers down is a tougher challenge. But what matters is how we, as individual players, respond to that challenge. Yes, you might be stock. Yes, you might be 2 tiers down. But if your expectation is to go out in a stock tank and do 3,000 damage in a tier 10 game when you're tier 8, that's probably an unreasonable expectation. And if you don't hit your damage expectation in a stock tank, you probably think, well, that was crap. But that's the kind of situation where I would say to you, right, change your expectation. You're in a stock tank, you're 2 tiers down. Play it smarter. Play it more sensibly. Be a bit more cautious. Try and get that spotting assist. Do what you can without, play to your tank's strengths. Even if it's 2 tiers down, play to its strengths. You can still spot. You can still get tracking assist. figure these little things out and adapt. And again, that's what matters. What matters is how we respond to these challenges. As always, folks, I hope you're all still keeping safe, and I will see you on the battlefield.